Wow. So what a quest. David, remember when so with the Aurora Torealis, how this woman, she came and she told me in the tower, like, oh, you were definitely Steiner. Yeah. And then I embodied that, and I knew I was told I had to go to the Goetheanum for epiphany. I thought, like, I was told to tell them that I need to do the vibrations, the St. Michael's Tower vibrations. I explained them in the email everything, how it's all connected with all the teachings that Steiner has ever given. It's like a spiritual insight and everything, and I explained them that, and I told them that for that reason I am being told by Archangel Michael, who runs the show, to hold like the St. Michael's Tower vibrations in the Goetheanum. And then I had my flight already booked, and then they wrote me back that it was too short notice, and they can't like have me kind of doing anything at the Goetheanum at that time. But I still knew I needed to make the contact on this day, on Epiphany, on the 19th. And so the last ceremony before going there, where we did in Phoenix Rising in Ashwell Lane. Yeah, Ashwell Lane, that's kind of where it is. And that was on the Thursday before I went to Switzerland, and on Sunday to be there. And this is where we anchored, where I told people what had happened during the Aurora Torealis, and why I need to go to the Goetheanum, to Switzerland, to present the whole principle of St. Michael's Tower vibrations to the Anthroposophists. And I thought, like, Goetheanum, that's the place. Then I suggested, I told them, look, I'm going to gift you one of my oil lamps. This oil lamp is for the Goetheanum, and I will come on this Sunday on Epiphany, and I would like to meet someone to take this lamp, so I can have a talk to, like, a representative from the Goetheanum. That's kind of what I would have liked. And then I get an email back, and in this email it goes like, oh, do you want to see him? I don't want to meet him. Oh, if you don't want to meet him, you can just say that there's nobody there to see him. And and then I get another email. Oh, sorry, this email wasn't for you. Just to let you know, on Sunday there won't be anyone there to see you, but you can drop the oil lamp off at the reception. And I'm like, okay, thank you. So I'm not going to drop the oil lamp off at the reception, but I wanted to do the ceremony there. I had already like put the heartbeat out with the 777 heartbeats to pulse Steiner's vision back to life. And then what's the number of your thing? So we arrived there. And there was like this cross, like this is Steiner's gravestone, basically. Well, the stone at the memorial place. And this is where we like made a heart of stone. And that's the kind of the Rosicrucian cross, the thing that I had never seen before, basically. And in it, there's those like 7 kind of stones, which I thought they looked like the apopholites from Ibiza, but they were not. And sorry, so that's the stone, and then my oil lamp fit on this stone as if it's been made for it. Every single wick touched one of the stones on there. And as we did our ceremony, a woman comes and she explains me the whole meaning of this sign. It's the Rosenkreuz, the Rosicrucian cross, how Steiner perceived it, and she told me that it's all to do with the Rosenkreuz meditation, with the meditation, and those 7 stones represent 7 roses, and they represent rubies, and that's why they used red granite to make the stone, so that the rubies, when they're wet, they shine kind of red. And then as I had put the oil lamp on it and every wick touched one of those, all of those rubies were like shining because they had like sunflower oil on it. So beautiful. And then we lit the flames, and as the heartbeat started, I thought it was a leaf, like something fell right into the oil lamp. And I was like, whoa. And I looked up, but it wasn't a leaf tree. It was like a piece of bark. It was a piece of bark from the stone that was there. From a needle tree. There's a needle tree. And so this bark fell off that tree the moment when and this is from a tree that got all the nourishment of like Steiner's ashes. What happened in the Goetheanum at that moment with that ceremony was like absolutely so beautiful, so serene. And then it felt like mission accomplished, with like 777 heartbeats on his ashes. Where his ashes, it's like a memorial hain, where his ashes are spread, and all the disciples, all the people who kind of like are his kind of, they adore his teachings, and if they belong to the Goetheanum, they would have their ashes shattered there as well. So to connect to the teachings of Steiner, to go like I am, and then arrive there, and how all this happened. And then so that was the moment when I arrived at the Goetheanum and anchored the energies of this whole me being who I am there. And then for Louie to leave on this very day, Louie, who gave me the 007 silver bar, like confirming my service for her divine feminine majesty. And it's kind of, I was on a mission, and the mission was to find myself on this very day and connect there with the whole magic, with everything on this day at that place, how it was like divinely guided. And then I was like, okay, but now we didn't. And on the way back, on the same day as we came back from the Goetheanum, in the river at the town where I stayed, there was a beaver swimming in the river, and I had never. This is the first beaver that I have ever seen, and like in the wild, kind of swimming, kind of, and quite significant at that moment. And then I realized that in this town where I was staying, they had an office, an anthroposophical office, basically. And it was called Edition. Like it's an office of the Anthroposophy, and there's one guy that sits in there 7 days a week translating Steiner's work. And I kind of knew I had to see him, because I knew I needed to contact the Anthroposophists. And I went into his office and I said like, oh, can we have a talk about like wisdom that I received according to like Steiner's theory and all the books, and and we did have a talk, and I shared everything with him, like everything from the Michael star vibrations over the Christ pulse. I had altogether, I had 3 sittings with him, between 90 minutes and 2 hours. At the first sitting, I told him, "Oh, I'm going to send you some stuff on email, so you can read through like the 3 years of teaching the Covenant of Christ." To like, and then we have a talk about that. And he's like, "Oh yes, here's my email," and his email was ear one, like the first ear, like ear one. And I thought that was quite wow. And on that day when I connected with the Anthroposophists, that's when Harry died, when Harry passed away. Now Harry, he came to my talks about my apparition. He meditated with the vibrations. He could feel the truth of everything in his heart. And when I gave this talk in Phoenix Rising in Ashwell Lane, he was there, and I explained him that this is the Grail. So I showed him the Grail, and I explained him how this connects to the Messianic seal of Jerusalem, and he could feel the truth of it. And we chat about it, we exchange this information. And for him to then go on this day to take all this truth like up, it's all connected. It's literally all connected. What a fairy tale. Like there's 2 saints. Like Louie is as much a saint as Harry, as you are, David. And for this to happen, divinely timed like that, mind-blowing in itself. Deeply, deeply humbled. And then, so the next day I came, he hadn't received my email. Like, although I sent it, he couldn't find it anywhere. It miraculously disappeared.
Yes. So who was this, the boss at the place?
His name is John Mary, and it was his birthday on the second day when I came, when he told me to come. But the email, it left, but it hadn't arrived anywhere at his. So I showed him where to read it, and then I had my last copy of A Grey Magic Night with me. And with this, I like explained him more of the story and the Grail quest and all these things. And it ended it ends with the confirmation of my Grail quest, the Bodhisattva with the 007 silver bar that I received in the tour. That's how this book ends. And I'm like, yeah, and it's only a chapter. And then we talked about the past lives that Steiner remembered. And the past lives that Steiner remembered was Aristoteles, a monk in the 3rd century, and Parzival. So Steiner remembered those 3 past lives because he could connect with the whole story through music or written words, or like, yeah, that's how he could connect at that time. And Steiner also explains how you need to connect to find out your past lives. You are being guided to connect to them in a certain way, and to realize that this is it. And then I explained, like Jean-Marie, that with the story that I lived here, we lived out the whole Arthurian myth. And because that's what we did. And then all of a sudden there's the Grail in this 3D reality, with like 3 Grail maidens being lit with the flames of Christ on the 99-year anniversary of Steiner's death. And then, like, we're talking Grail maidens, Sarah Schema, the day after I was on the ashes of Rudolf Steiner, she connected with the heartbeat. And then she goes like, she calls me and she's like, what was that thing with the tooth that you lost? And I'm like, oh yeah, I lost the tooth in Ireland and it didn't hurt at the same beach where St. Patrick lost his tooth. And she goes like, that's really strange because yesterday I lost a tooth as well and it didn't hurt. And I was in a place called Ash. And then I'm like, wow, from Ashwell Lane on the ashes of Rudolf Steiner, Louie goes on his path to be turned into ashes, and she loses a tooth in a place called Ash,
which is quite near here
and
actually.
all of this on the same day, like it's all part of a story. It's all like part of a story, and so then with this life of kind of Steiner and the lives that he could remember, and how like after I then had like basically 3 days where I exchanged with him the whole scientific approach of the story that I've been living with somebody who spent 20 years.
Who is this guy?
Jean-Marie.
He's in a little shop somewhere.
He's got an office.
Okay,
and
yeah.
in this office is full with Steiner books. That's what he does. He translates the German books and then puts them into print and then makes them available to like the French-speaking people. This is like the office of this part of this whole thing.
All right, that sounds good.
And when I told him like so when I told him that I was at the Goetheanum, so I told him that I have reason to believe that like I am Steiner, one of his incarnations, and I tried to go to the Goetheanum, but they wouldn't let me in. And he just goes like, well, you know that Steiner did say that when he comes back, they won't even let him in the Goetheanum. And I just laughed and like literally, ha ha, ha ha, ha ha, ha ha. So I established with him that according to the science and everything, yes, I only received confirmations from him. I didn't record all those details, but I did record. After those 3 days, I came back to see him, to give him, like I was just on my way to catch a train. And this time I explained him in French, like in my broken French, basically. I gave him an oil lamp with a triskel, and I lit the flame, and I left it there as a present together with a flyer. And I told him like how, look, with Steiner, he remembered those 3 recent lives of his. Now, because he could connect to those energies, now I came back and I connected with the energies of like St. John the Baptist, Elijah, the Arthurian myth, like I could have only done this lifetime to live out this story. And then I told him, look, from the whole kind of, wouldn't it make complete sense that Steiner like would have been Elijah in one of his incarnations, that Steiner would have been St. John the Baptist in one of his incarnations, that Steiner would have been Akhenaten in one of his incarnations. And he's like, yeah, obviously, it does make sense. I'm like, yes, and he just couldn't realize those lives because he didn't have the chance. Now he did. And now he's back, having received the confirmations for those recent lives in a way like he described in the books that he had written in his life as Steiner. And so the whole reincarnating kind of thing has been proved as good as it can be proven, because there's a whole science behind it. And the confirmations like Anthroposophy, Anthropos is the humanity and Sophia is the divine feminine. And Anthroposophy, if you just like translate it literally, is the relation of the divine feminine to the humanity. And then to realize like, wow, that's why dedicated my entire life to the Divine Feminine, to reinstall that here in this landscape. And then with the whole Parzival myth, like, because the picture that you showed me here in one of those books was Parzival and the angels with the Grail and with the Pompalis Bridge. And then I just looked up on Parzival in the Wagner kind of mythos, and like in the way that Steiner connected, that made him realize that he was an incarnation of that. And the storyline is that Parzival was a complete fool. He had no idea who he was, and only at the end of his quest he realized who he was. And this is exactly what happened to me in Switzerland. And then to have that confirmed, like with all those details, with him, year one, the timing of two people who were intrinsically, they both played a massive part in the evolution of all of this. And we are all bodhisattvas. And how they then, like, it's like we're all part of a story. But like with relation to this story, they took all this information, just like what they represent, up into the source. You see what I mean? And this is so beautiful. I feel literally so blessed. And all the tiny kind of minor confirmations with, like I showed you the picture with the heel and with the tattoo of the laurel, and on the other heel there was like a swan of Emily, one of the girls there, and that swan was in kind of aurora colors. And on the 16th at that ceremony, before I went to Switzerland, she had those two tattoos on her heels for more than 5 years. And it was on that evening when those tattoos together for her made absolute sense.